Hey guys, and welcome to today's episode of Give It the Beans. It is my pleasure to introduce the one and only Phoebe Hagan to the podcast. How are we doing?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing not too shabby for a rainy day here in Scotland.
Yeah, it's rainy over here as well, to be fair, so it's everywhere, I guess.
Now, I know that you're an inspiration to many female competitors and athletes out there, but there might be some females listening to the podcast that are completely new to this. And what I would love you to do is just give yourself an introduction of who you are, what it is you do, how long you've been in the game for, and whatnot. And so we can just get a little bit of background information before the episode gets cracking.
Yeah, it's amazing. My name's Phoebe Hagan. I'm 25 years old. I have been competing since 2016. I turned pro in 2018. It's actually today. It's been 2 years exactly since I've turned pro. So that was an amazing day. And yeah, ever since then, I've obviously been competing in IFBB pro shows all around the world, in America, Europe, loads of different places, which is really, really fun. I've built up my name in the bodybuilding community, the fitness community, all that type of thing, throughout that time. And yeah, I have loved doing that ever since, if I'm honest. I've competed a lot. I know that's obviously what we're going to be discussing today. I don't want to say I've competed the most amount of times, but I've competed a lot for my age, for 25 years old. I know obviously people that have competed way more than me, but they're older. So I don't know if I'm the youngest that have competed as many times as I have, but we'll see. I've competed a lot of times, I won't lie.
Yeah, I mean, I think I went on your website and it said 28 shows in 4 years.
Yeah.
Which is insane.
Yes,
I'm sure
a lot of shows.
I'm sure that someone over the course of like a 15, 20, 25-year career has maybe not done as many as that.
Yeah, so, like it's a lot. Like if I look back at it and I'm like, I don't actually know how I even did that many shows, if I'm honest. I don't know how I got through that many shows. Yeah, it's crazy.
And, I have a female coach that works for me, and she actually said, hey, Vaughn, could you get Phoebe on the podcast? Because she's such a huge inspiration to me, which was one of the main reasons why I reached out to you. But also, we work with a lot of bikini girls, and they all follow you and look up to you. So I figured...
Oh, that's so sweet.
I figured it was great to just get you on and kind of just really hone in on your own personal experience sort of throughout the years. Okay, not many years, because as you said...
No, I know.
But 28 shows in 4 years is an unbelievable feat. Now, you've had a lot of success in that, but what I wanted to maybe sort of dig into was, where did it all start for you? What was the defining moment that inspired you to say, right? Or did it just kind of all snowball together, and before you know it, you're like, oh my God, I'm 25, I've done 28 shows. So can you take me back to the start, maybe when you first picked up a weight, and then how it all developed from there to where you are now?
Well, it was about 2000, if I'm honest, I haven't actually been training as long as people think as well. So it was back until probably about 2013, I would say, where I started trying to get into fitness. Like I was probably like you'd call the typical cardio bunny. I kind of just went on the treadmill, did sprints, or I was on the stepper, tried to do a few exercises like body weight, HIIT, not much about weight training or anything like that. I didn't really research it as much, and kind of the typical girl, like lifting weights makes you bigger, bulkier, so I didn't really want to touch weights, you know what I mean? That was kind of my persona on it. So I was like, okay, let's do loads of cardio, all that type of thing. And I actually was a cheerleader for 8 years, and we actually went to America, and that was the turning point where I knew I could dedicate myself to bodybuilding because of cheerleading, because it's very much so the similar dedication. Like you have to put your all into it. You have to go to training like every week, or we did training like 5 times a week, which was pretty much similar to what a lot of bodybuilders do in terms of going to the gym 5 times a week or more. So I already knew how to dedicate myself from cheerleading. So that taught me dedication. And actually the cheerleading facility that I used to go to still is next to a bodybuilding gym. So I started getting older. Obviously I was getting a bit older now, too old for cheerleading, and I was like, okay, I want to try and go to the gym. So I just went next door, pretty much, went into the gym, and I was like, what is this place? It was so different, because I used to train at a fitness center where it wasn't really like a bodybuilding gym. There wasn't really machines. It was pretty much like dumbbells and cables. So I went in here and I was like, wow, this is insane. And it wasn't like massive amount of equipment, but it was like enough to be like, wow, this is really cool. And that was back in 2015. And yeah, I started working there for work experience because I was like, I want to be in this. And the people that were working there kind of were into bodybuilding, all that type of thing, and taught me a little bit about it. And I actually met my partner there as well. So, and we've been together for almost 5 years now. And so he showed me the bodybuilding world and he was like, why don't you just do a show? And I was like, okay. And I just literally randomly was like, yeah, let's try do a show. And my first show was Mass SPC, which is a university-based federation. So you can only be a university student and to apply to this federation, obviously. And I did that, and it was really, really fun just to like get a vibe for bodybuilding. And then obviously from there, I was like, I love this. I want this to be my career. At the time, I was actually in university for business to, I was doing a personal training course and also at university to kind of merge the two together one day. And I actually, not a lot of people know, I do say it quite often, but not a lot of people remember, is I actually quit university to become a full-time bodybuilder. Right. That was when I wasn't placing. That was when I didn't have clients. I didn't have anything. I was like, but I want to put my all into this. And I know I've never been a very educational person in terms of going to university, sitting down in a classroom and learning from that. I've always struggled with that, even when I was a kid. And I wasn't enjoying uni. And that was, at the time, the only thing that I loved was doing shows after shows. That year, 2016, I did 8 shows. And I would miss classes. And obviously, I'm not telling anyone to do this because this is just stupid. But I missed classes to university. I'd like to do bodybuilding shows. I missed out on work. Like, I put my absolute all into bodybuilding because I knew that was what I wanted to do. And in the end, I quit my job. I used to work in retail at Urban, what's it called now? Urban Fitness, yeah. Urban Outfitters, sorry. Urban Outfitters, I used to work there part-time for just obviously money purposes. Quit there, quit university. I didn't even finish the course. I just didn't want to be there. Sure. And yeah, from there on out, I was like, I'm going to put my all into what I want to do. And now here we are. So very long-winded, but we are now here 4 years later. And yeah, bodybuilding is pretty much my life.
Yeah, I love that. And it is such a common trait that when I ask any successful bodybuilder like yourself on sort of how it all started, they all say they threw themselves into it and they gave it their all. You know, it's a very common thing to hear from successful bodybuilders. Now, class yourself 100% as successful. Now, 8 shows in 1 year in your first season. I remember doing one show, my very first show, and I was dying. I was dead. I was like, no, I'm never doing that ever again.
No, I know.
How did you manage to sort of mentally deal with that? I mean, often females, quite low calories, high output. Was it different for yourself, or were you just like, you know what, this is fucking it, and this is the dream?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, when I say, like, because obviously a lot of males say that to me and be like, how did you do that? Like, I do find women, like, and their threshold for things, they can kind of upkeep it more sometimes. And also with bikini, it's a lot different to bodybuilding. So I get like bodybuilding's not harder, but in terms of the things that you have to do are a lot more stressful on the body. So I get that, like, doing 8 shows for a bodybuilder is probably like, what? Like, there's no way I can do that. Yeah. But if I'm honest, looking back at it, there was no strategic to it. I just did it and I kind of went for it. And in terms of health purposes, I still had, obviously, my monthly cycle each week. I've never really had an issue with like any health concerns or anything. Like, my thyroid was always in check. I've always been one for making sure that was in check before doing any of the shows. Last year, 2019, we did 8 shows as well in a very, very short amount of time to try and get qualified for 2020 Olympia. And my coach was like, look, do you want to carry on? I'm happy if you want to carry on, but it's going to be a struggle. And we kind of said, look, let's call it quits so we can kind of get back to normality. Obviously, my body fat was very, very low. So we can kind of obviously gain some more body fat and get your mental state in a better place before we can kind of go in 2020. So as much as I wanted to carry on, my coach was like, I think let's pull back. Like, and that's always been the case. We've never overrun it and been like, no, let's push our body. I mean, there's a limit. So I say, because bodybuilding, you push your body to limits anyway. And there's a very difficult, I'm not going to push my body too far, but, because I don't want to get that condition, but then you're going to have to do that at some point to get to that condition. So it's very difficult. We've always, with my current coach now, Adam from Team Elite Physique, I do visit him quite often in Denver in America and get blood tests done and stuff because he has doctors over there. So health is always a priority. Like, as much as people are always like, oh my God, 8 shows, like that's probably what you thought in terms of how did she hold up health wise? Like, what happened? Like, I've never heard of someone doing that, because that's what I hear a lot as well. But no, we've always made sure that my health was in check before we even kind of went on. Obviously, at some points, probably my body was tired. I knew that going to some shows, my body was a little bit tired than my previous shows and stuff, but we still kind of went ahead for it, and it was still a good turnout. Sometimes you have to do that within bodybuilding. You have to push that a little bit further to get what you want. Yeah, pretty much that.
I think that's a great point to emphasise, that you kept saying or reiterating that before every show you made sure that health was in check, because it is very frequent for many females out there to lose their cycle when they are competing for a show, and then perhaps they maybe don't regain it fully. They say we need 3 in a row to class it as.
Yeah. I mean, it's very common for, obviously when you get this low, it's very common to lose your monthly cycle. It's very common, and you don't nowadays you do meet a lot of people that have your monthly cycles and stuff like that, which is obviously normal. You should be having them. But it is very common for people to lose them. But it should be a priority to gain it back after your show. And it shouldn't be like a priority to lose it or anything like that, if that makes sense. Or it shouldn't be, I mean, I say it shouldn't be uncommon, but people kind of are like, oh, it's fine. Like, I know this is normal, but it shouldn't be the normal, if that makes sense. It shouldn't be, I've lost it, it's fine.
100% agree with you. I was just wanting to reiterate a point that if perhaps females have had a loss of their cycle and they haven't regained it for the next season, it's not a good idea to prep again, because the body's already still is in a state of stress. But all that aside, what I wanted to kind of talk to you about was, back in that first season when you did your 8 shows, was there an inkling, an idea of, what, I want to fucking be a pro, I want to make Olympia, I want to make it the biggest stage in the world? Or did that develop over the years? Or did you know in that first year you wanted to go to that biggest stage in the world?
I think it was probably my first and second show where I'd say my second show most of all, that I was like, I want this. Because my first show that I did, it was a smaller show, but I did win it and I won overall, which was an amazing feeling, obviously, for your first show. Absolutely great. And I was like, I love this feeling. I want to do this more often. And then at the time, UKBFF was like the top league show you go to obviously get your pro card, your IFBB pro card. And I was like, okay, that's the top of the top. I'm going to start straight there, because I don't want to mess around. I don't want to try and do a smaller federation and work my way up. I just want to go straight in there. That's always the type of person I've been. I've been like, I want to go straight in from the best and work my way up. And I actually obviously went from Mass SPC, which was obviously a smaller federation, to UKBFF, and I got 6th place, which was, it's not bad, but obviously from going 1st to 6th, I was like, that kind of sucks. But from that point, I was like, I don't want this feeling again to get lower. I want to keep going higher. Do you know what I mean? So I was like, okay, let's do it again. I actually did the English Grand Prix and I got 4th, and I was like, okay, this is better, but it's still not top 3, because you needed to get top 3 to get an invite to the British finals. Did Scotland Grand Prix, got 4th again, and I was like, okay, this isn't funny anymore. I'm just going to keep going and going. And the thing is, it's taught me, obviously, like I said, back when I was in cheerleading, it taught me dedication, and it taught me you need to fight for something if you want it. Like that from the get-go. I've always been like that from when I was younger and stuff, because you can't just go for something and expect it straight away. You have to put in the work. So I kept on working, and finally I got an invite. And then obviously when I got to the British, I was like, damn, I'm out of my league. Like, these are the top dogs. These are the people that are going in and winning these shows now I'm against. And I didn't get, you had to get top 15 to obviously then go to your individual round and you show off your I walk, and I didn't get top 15, and I was like, right, what do I need to work on? We worked on it for I think a few months, and we did a show then in November, 5 weeks later, and I won that show. So like for me, I was like, I know what I want and I'm not going to stop until I get it. That's kind of my mindset I have when it comes to bodybuilding, and that's the kind of mindset I try and portray on a lot of people, because a lot of people kind of like, it's very difficult because they doubt themselves. And I obviously I doubt myself as well. Like there's been so many times where I've been like, I'm not good enough, I shouldn't do this, but I still go after it because I know that's what I want. You shouldn't let your doubt stop you from achieving something.
Absolutely. Now, I think it takes a heck of a lot. Like what you just said takes a heck of a lot of mental resilience.
Yeah.
I still remember placing fourth in my first show and thinking I was a failure and thinking the world was going to end and whatnot. But you just went off the cuss and said, "Oh, I went fourth, blah, 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 blah," and then before you know I was pro.
Yeah.
But if you were to talk about, that alone is a challenge. That whole like, okay, am I perhaps good enough to continue to do this? But that clearly wasn't even a thought in your mind. But that alongside over the course of all the years, we wouldn't necessarily call placing fourth a low and winning as a high. But if we were to talk about highs and lows over the years, was there any sort of poignant memories? Could you say, you know what, that was a really low point, but I came out of it and it made me better? Or discuss some of the highs for us, just for anyone listening to get a real understanding of like what that takes to battle through that.
Well, I say, one of my not lowest moment, but one of the moments that I keep like playing over in my mind is 2 times. So when I first turned pro was obviously 2 years ago. From that point, I was like, I want to go to the Olympia. Obviously, as every pro, you're like, that's my goal. I want to go to the Olympia, the biggest stage in the world. At the time, 2018 the goal was just to literally turn pro. It wasn't to get an Olympia invite that year or anything like that. So it wasn't planned. The system of how to get an Olympia invite for a bikini athlete, the last 2 years has been very difficult. You have to do it through points. So even if you win a show, you don't get an invite, or top 3 or anything like that, you don't get an invite. You just gain points. So I had to do 4 shows, to get points. And 2018, you have to get points to be in the top 20. So there's no like number you have to hit to be in that top 20. You just have to keep going until it was like the beginning of August. Whoever's in that top 20 list is going to the Olympia. That's pretty much how it works. 2018, I was 4 points away from the top 20. Last year, 2019, I was 2 points away. So, and it's been and those are the 2 points where it's really, really hard for me, because that's one thing that I've wanted for 2 years that I've been chasing and I still haven't gotten. And obviously till this day, I still haven't gotten. And it's very difficult for me to be like, what, am I worth it? Am I doing everything I can? Being that close. I even won my first pro show last year in Vegas. And obviously didn't get an invite, and it's difficult to be like, well, am I worth it? Am I worth going to the Olympia? And you do get those thoughts. And both of those times when kind of the cutoff point came around, and I find out that I'm not in that top 20, those were probably my lowest moments of like, well, what's the point? Because I tried so hard and I still didn't get it. But for me, bodybuilding is a greater feeling than just the shows itself and like the trophies and the placings and stuff. It's taught me like a lot of dedication, like I said, throughout life, and going after things that you want, and achieving things that you want through that dedication and focus, instead of just being like, oh no, I tried once and I couldn't do it. You can put that dedication and focus into all aspects of your life and get where you want to be.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. And when I speak to anyone who has, done a similar journey to yourself, that has made the whole life from bodybuilding, they have just a passion that you have as well. That when you talk about whether it's competing or this, that, and the next thing you've experienced over the years, and it's just pleasure to just sit and listen.
Yeah,
it's awesome that you've done that. But what I wanted to say is that would you say that the past 2 years getting so close, is that not that the fire needed lit? It was already lit before, but has it added fuel to the fire to be like, right?
Yeah. Like every year, like it's happened twice. Obviously, it's happened twice now. So it happened, obviously in 2018, it was very, very close. And then last year as well was very, very close. And it just lights the fire even more. And like, it's like little things like on cardio, when I'm on cardio and I can't be bothered, it sounds very cliche, but when I can't be bothered for cardio and I'm like, oh, this is like a drag. I remember the moment where I was feeling low that I didn't get the invite, and I was like, well, if you don't drag your ass through this cardio now, you're going to have that feeling again. So like, it boosts me even more to get that fire even lit and stuff. It never goes out. Obviously, I have those times where I'm like, can I do it? Can I not? Obviously, with all this COVID stuff going on, I'm like, will I be able to get it? Because I can't fly anywhere. And their doubts do come about, but I'm like, I would rather try than not try at all.
Yeah. At least that if, we're still not able to fly, you did everything that you could to possibly put yourself in a position. 100% agree. Now, everything that you sort of spoke about the past sort of 20 minutes leads me to one sort of big question, and something that you preach a lot, which is talking about knowing your own ability, right? You've got the hashtag, the clothing, it's what you're all about. And I think it's a statement and a message that, from what you said, it seems like you have lived and breathed that statement over the years. But for anyone listening that perhaps doesn't know that statement, they want to know a little bit about it, can you just tell us a little bit more about it, about why you live by that, how you preach it, and how they can maybe implement it into their life?
So Know Your Own Ability was actually a YouTube series when I was going after my pro card. So I have a YouTube, and I kind of like document my prep, everyday life, all that type of thing. And I was thinking of what I could call my series, obviously going towards my pro card. And I was like, well, what can it be? Because I've been chasing obviously my pro card for a while, but I want it to be a journey where I can show people that you can achieve this, you can do this, and achieve what you want. And that's where Know Your Own Ability came from. And it was just pretty much the definition is just in the name, like knowing your own ability and knowing your worth, knowing that you can succeed in what you want when you go for it. And that's why I kept on like saying throughout my whole series, like, when I say the words know your own ability, it brings me back down to earth if I'm feeling doubtful or if I'm feeling like I can't do something, which obviously happened a lot going after something like a pro card. It's very draining, it's very hard, and you do get those mental times where you're like, can I actually do this? You see other people on Instagram and they're looking great, and you're like, God, I'm going up against her or him. Is this actually going to like happen? I don't know. And you say, know your own ability, like Phoebe, know your own ability, like you can do this. And it just brings me back to earth, and like, it's like, yes, you can do this. So yeah, I created that. And when I obviously got my pro cards, that was like the big title of the name. And that was pretty much my YouTube series for 2018. And then, yeah, obviously I had a lot of people say like that meaning really meant a lot to me throughout my prep, throughout my life, like throughout just ways of just like wanting to achieve something, and saying like, if I just said know your own ability, it brought me back down to earth. And I was like, I want to keep this going. So then I made clothing so people could wear the actual hashtag and like be proud of it, you know what I mean? And that they know their own ability. So yeah, that's why I kind of created it, because I wanted people to realize that they can achieve something that they think maybe not be achievable, but it is.
And when you look back to the sort of, not low points during prep, but the times where like you're so hungry you just want to eat your own arm off, or you're dragging it up for cardio, is that just something that you just say out loud, or you say in your head and it's just that flip?
I just kind of, say it in my head. I'm like, literally, I say it in my head. I'm like, know your own ability, Phoebe. Like, come on, like, do, like, it's kind of like, let's do this. Like, you can do this. That's kind of, it's like that's kind of the meaning behind it. It's like, you can do this, like, know your own ability. That's what I kind of say in my head. And then for me, everything kind of just goes over from there. So yeah, like, it's got me through, it sounds silly, but it's got me through a lot of tough points where I've been like, I can't do this. And then I'm like, yes, you can. Like, you have to just, sound silly, but talk to yourself and be like, you can do this. Like, even though it's probably sounds a bit silly, but you have to do that to get through the hard points in life sometimes. And the thing is, prep, I always say this, prep is a privilege to do anyway. We're very privileged to be able to prep and do all of that type of thing. So for me, that's what I always try and look at. If I feel, oh, I'm really hungry, this is so hard, I'm like, you are privileged to be able to prep, so get the fuck over it, pretty much. And just get it over with. I'm very much a tough mentality mindset. Like, I'm not like soppy or like, oh, I'm struggling really hard. Like I will express my emotions and say, do you know what, today was hard, but this was probably harder. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. I think something you said earlier in that statement, I don't want to interrupt, I think was a great point, especially for the young females listening that have just got on the scene. And I work with many females that will come on board and they wanted aspirations of competing in bikini. And I say, listen, you're about 2 or 3 years away developing tissue and whatnot.
Yeah.
But they might spend hours on Instagram checking out, as you said, the next best thing, or oh my god, I can't believe it, or how does she look like that? Was that ever something that you perhaps or had dealt with yourself, or the experience with clients or fellow competitors? And if so, to someone listening, how would you say they kind of get over that or out of that mindset?
I think honestly, when you first come into bodybuilding, everyone will do that, regardless of their coach saying like, don't look on Instagram, don't do this. They'll do it anyway I don't do it now, but the thing is with the pro circuit, it's even worse because when you're an amateur, you don't know who you're going to be up against. And it's not like, unless you obviously know through Instagram or people have said, oh yeah, I'm doing this show. With pros, a list comes out the week before with all of the names. Even on Instagram, you get posted and tagged. Even if you try and hide, you will know who you're against. And you're like, oh, I'm against this person. I know this person. Even if you don't look at their Instagram, you'll know. So it's a bit difficult for pros. But for amateurs, even when I was an amateur, I found it very difficult because I would go, like, my first, I'd say year, I would go looking and be like, okay, who's doing this show? Because I was intrigued. So I was like, okay, how's she doing this? I'm going to try and do it. But that's not what you should do because each individual is different. She might be on an hour and a half of cardio. You might be on 40 minutes. And a lot of the times I've never had to be on a lot of cardio, which is very, very lucky for me. But I know some people that will be on hour and a half, maybe even 2 hours cardio. And I'm like, am I doing enough? I'm not doing enough. I should be doing more. And I hassle my coach, like, I should be on more cardio, blah, blah, blah. He's like, no, because you're not them. They probably have to lose XYZ. You are ahead of time. You don't need to do this. Do you know what I mean? It's different. It's very individual to each person. That's why it's very, very good to have a coach because, I mean, your mentality, obviously, when you're in prep and stuff, it does become very, very hard to, like, handle mentally, like, things mentally in terms of, like, looking at other people, comparing, and just trying, like, looking at yourself. Sometimes you don't see yourself clearly in terms of you look good. Sometimes you'll be too critical on yourself, which happens a lot. But going back to obviously the Instagram thing, in terms of what you can do, obviously you're going to be able to, you can look on Instagram, like you look on Instagram and you don't have to look for the people, but don't become obsessed with comparing. Like, don't try and hide yourself from it because that, I think that becomes worse because if you try and hide it, you then want it to see it more. And it's not a case of let's go looking for it. Just have that middle ground. Oh, look, she looks great. She's doing my show. Cool, great, scroll. Just don't let anyone like blind you from your path, if that makes sense. That's what I've really found. It takes a long time to do that. Like, it's taken me only really, I'd say 2019, I kind of like got past that. I was like, you know, I don't care who I'm against. She looks great. I'm here for a good time. Like, I'm here competing against her. It's fine. Like, it doesn't faze me. Whereas before it did, I was like, oh, I don't know if I can do this show because so-and-so is doing that show. And, you know, you kind of get over that slowly but surely. But it's just having that middle ground and just focusing on yourself. If you focus on others too much, then it will blind you from, like, where you need to go, if I'm honest. So just for people looking for advice, obviously not comparing and that type of thing, is just making sure that you are focusing on yourself and not others. It's like a big point in bodybuilding. Obviously it's hard because obviously you at some point you will be compared against each other, so it is difficult, but let the judges do that, not you.
Yeah, and you know what, I don't think I've asked a question like that and had that same response. I think a lot of the responses I've had before has been, yeah, get off it, unfollow those accounts, blah blah, but you kind of said that, well, from experience, still follow them, that's cool, just keep scrolling. And I guess the advice of keep scrolling might be something for young females out there to reiterate in their head if they are looking at bench. Oh my God, she looks amazing. Great point that I just thought, if anyone's listening that's listened a lot before, they've obviously never heard that advice.
Yeah.
But what I want to do is kind of go back a little bit, take a little bit of a 180 to when you first started competing. And just in general, you mentioned it before, you used to be cardio bunny, and perhaps when you went into bodybuilding, right at the start, you trained at a certain way. But when you decided, I'm going to go for a specific federation, IFBB, did your training change much at all? How did it change? And, because we'll know, and I spoke about this in the last podcast with Emma Heineman, different categories in federations, look for different things.
Yeah.
But for yourself, did you change your training to suit the category, or do you just train because you fucking love it?
So that's interesting, to be fair. So when I first started training, obviously, like I said, I was cardio bunny, and then my sister actually plays rugby. So she has to train anyway. So she kind of got me into the gym. She was like, let's go into the weights area now at the leisure centre. I was like, let's go, because I do want to try and learn how to do it. So she taught me how to squat. She taught me how to kind of like do all the simple movements with like dumbbells and stuff, all that sort of thing. And then a lot of the time I just researched a lot of stuff. So typical stuff I would research was how to build glutes. How do I do this? How do I do that? And it's actually really simple, because it's generally that simple for people to get kind of into now. You could just Google it and say, how do I do this? And you can learn it. Obviously, it's better sometimes when you have a trainer, because then they can say, okay, let's do this form instead of that. And it's a lot easier to get in a better form, and you don't have to waste your time getting in bad form and stuff. But so from there, obviously, I was probably working very, very high reps. I didn't really push myself a lot with the weights. I was kind of like literally doing like 5 kilo shoulder press for like 20 reps and being like, yep, that's okay. And that'll be it. That was back in I would say 2014, 15. And then I started lifting heavy when I met my partner. And in 2016, we kind of slowly increased the weight for things, and then I got myself a trainer as well in 2016 to 2017, and I was very much progressive overload based. So I still believe in progressive overload now, and it helped me build obviously a lot of my muscle anyway, because that's the way to build muscle and stuff like that. Also being a carrier surplus, all that type of thing. So we went in an off season, built up my muscle, came back down into prep, and we still pushed for progressive overload. In 2019 was the turning point for me, where I had kind of reached my limits of how much I could gain. So 2018, obviously, I earned my pro card, and I carried on doing pro shows from, when was it, June till November. And a lot of the feedback was, you're very big for a bikini girl. So I in terms of thickness and stuff. So we kind of tried to bring down training, but I was very much I love training heavy. I love lifting heavy. I'm not going to do that. And then we slowly started to see the results would get lower and lower. So I was kind of coming, say, about second, third, and then I got less lower placings. And they were like, your feedback is, you're too big, you're too bulky, you pose quite hard. That's a few of the things that need to change. And I switched coaches in 2019 to Team Elite Physique in America, and I went to visit him in March, and that was when he was like, you are very, very big for a bikini girl, and if you carry on doing progressive overload and building quite a lot of muscle, you will not get to where you want to be, because this is always going to be feedback. So I was kind of like, well, I either stop training the way I love right now, just for the moment, so I can kind of get the look that they want, and then kind of progress from there. So in terms of obviously answering your question, changing your training to fit the category, yes. So I kind of trained pretty much when back in 2016, like a bodybuilder, because obviously my boyfriend taught me progressive overload, all that type of thing. And I slowly tried to, then we had to try and change it because I was building too much. So yeah, I had to change my training a lot. I've now kind of found a middle ground now where I do lift heavy sometimes, but not all the time. It's obviously mind-muscle connection, making sure I'm focusing on lifting the weights properly. Yes, getting to a point where you lift heavy weights, but I'm at the point now where I can't build anymore. So I can't lift as heavy, which kind of sucks because I did love lifting heavy. But I save that for my off season, if I'm honest, and build up my lifts then and stuff like that. And then when I'm in prep, I will lift whatever I need to, if that makes sense. Yeah. It sometimes doesn't make sense to a lot of people. But yeah, I can't at the moment really progressive overload train as much as I'd want to.
Yeah. So let's say, for example, you get to the point, you get to the biggest stage, you get the trophy, you get the big thing. Would you then just say, right, I'm just going to start getting big, I'm going to move up categories, and I'm just going to get huge? Was that what you would do? Or?
It's so weird because I haven't actually thought of that, if I'm honest. Like, if you actually have achieved all the things that you want, what do you do next? Do you then move on to the next category? I love figure because one of my best friends, Ria Gale, is actually a figure competitor, and I love the shape of figure. Like, she's absolutely like got a gorgeous shape, and I love watching the figure girls. I actually went to the Olympia last year to watch her, and see the figure girl category. Absolutely insane. Like, they're gorgeous, but for some reason I wouldn't want to do that myself. I really like the way bikini is going, especially at the moment in 2020. It is more of a muscular look. So now my physique is favouring the category more. And I feel like if I was obviously to go into figure, I would have to take a very, very long time off to build the muscle that is needed for their category. So, which obviously I wouldn't mind doing, but I really do like the bikini category, especially where it's going at the moment. So I probably wouldn't change. No, I would, if it came to it and I'd achieved everything, I'd achieved Miss Bikini Olympia, everything, then I would just go to, I don't know, I'd coach, go on to coaching. I'd probably still carry on, if I'm honest, and compete. Because I just love competing and going on stage. It's something that I really enjoy.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just wanted to ask that because it's something that I'll always ask. I've had a couple of IFBB pros on here. Emma was one, Colin was one, and I'll tend to say, what's the big goal after? Because I'm never going to say what's the big goal because I know it's going to be winning the big trophy on the biggest stage. But it's, can you see past that? But often, I guess maybe perhaps you get so fixated on the number one thing, you ain't thinking about you're just thinking about that one thing. Would you say? Sorry, on you go.
That's right. A lot of people say that with their pro card and stuff. So obviously they go after their pro. They're like, all I want is my pro card. I want my pro card. And because me and Marie actually got our pro cards at the same show, and we kind of like sat in. Once we'd achieved them, we were like, "Is this the feeling like of getting your pro card?" Because it was kind of like a feeling we thought would be a lot higher. If that makes sense, we were like, "Well, is this what we wanted?" Like, it didn't feel like we'd achieved it because we were like, "Okay, now what?" Do you know what I mean? And then I think it took like a day or two to kind of get over those feelings. And then we're like, okay, now hit that. This is where the real work really starts. Do you know what I mean? To get to obviously where we want to be.
It was just a case of one thing got replaced by another.
Yeah.
You achieve it and you go, well, fuck, that's
the thing. It's I'm very much like that. I mean, I think I'm too much like that in the sense where when I achieve something, okay, on to the next goal. I don't celebrate enough, which obviously you should, but I don't stay in that celebratory like bubble for long. I'm like, okay, next. That's kind of how I work. And I think a lot of people find it difficult to get out of that. Like, yes, I've achieved this. I'm so happy, blah, blah. And then they're like, oh, fuck, now what? And then they realize and they're like, okay, now what do I do? I'm kind of like celebrate for a week, a day, not even a week, a day. And then I'll move on and be like, okay, now what's next? I'm very much like that. I always have.
Absolutely. Now, your experience over the years, the amount of shows you've done, and the amount of other competitors you probably know, I think that you'd probably be one of the best people to give advice on where to start. And by that I mean that there's many females out there that look up to you and you're a massive inspiration to them. They want to achieve the accolades you have. And if they haven't even done a show yet, where would you say they should start competing in? You talked about at the start you did a university sort of style show, and to then be able to, some of them don't even know what an IFBB Pro card is, so you could drop that in there as well. So where should they start, do you think?
I mean, in terms of not even looking at shows yet, I always, if they have a kind of like the mentality or the question like, oh, I kind of want to compete, I always look, what do you want to compete for? Why do you want to compete? And really look at those questions, because I think a lot of people see the trophies, the glam, and they're like, oh my God, I want that. And then they get into the hard work and they're like, oh, I didn't want this. So you have to really ask yourself, do you actually want to compete? What do you want to compete for? If it's just for a hobby and you want to try it out, and it's going to be a challenge, I want to try and challenge myself, that's absolutely fine. That's great to have a challenge to work towards. I think competing is very good for that as well. But also, if you're looking at the glam, you're looking at the trophies, all that type of thing, and you want that, just be aware that there's a lot of hard work behind it. And like I said, ask yourself the question of like, okay, why do I actually want to compete? Why do I want that? Why is competing kind of intriguing me to want to compete, if that makes sense? That's where I evidently start. And then in terms of like federations and stuff, just look up all different types of federations, because there's so many, and see which one actually fits your personality and like what you prefer. Because some people, there's like, say, Pure Elite, Miami Pro, WBFF, they're very glam, not over the top, but very showy shows. There's a lot of people that are very much like that personality wise, that they would love to do that type of federation. They do maybe a PCA, you could be a fifth federation, they're like, oh, this is boring. Like, you have to make sure that you're competing for a show or for a federation that you enjoy as well, not just kind of like the trophies and stuff. That's where I'd kind of start. Look at what federation fits your personality. And what fits you best, and then look into the goals deeper and be like, okay, how far can this federation actually take me? If I'm wanting to get my pro card maybe one day, if I'm actually wanting to go like further in this, how far can this federation take me? That's kind of what I looked at when I was looking for shows. I was like, okay, what do I want to do now after mass SBC? Because I knew that was a warm up as such. So I was like, well, I want my pro card. At the time, to be fair, there's obviously now loads of different pro cards, like PCA pro cards. Is it BNBF? Is it BNBF?
It's DFCA pro card.
Yeah, that's the one. There's so many pro cards I can't keep up, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
There's loads of different, obviously, types of pro cards that you can get. So, like, which pro card do you want to go for? When people say pro card now, there's loads. So, which one would you want to go for? How far can that federation evidently get you being a pro? Like, what can you get from it? That type of thing. Because being a pro is also like it's almost a business as well. It's a status that you have. Like, okay, how far can I go with that? What can being a pro get me? And how can I expose myself and help my business and stuff? That's kind of what you want to look at it like, I guess. That's probably very overwhelming for someone that's literally like, I just want to compete. But look at why you want to compete first. Why has it intrigued you competing? And then go for looking at federations that fit your personality, most of everything.
Yeah, I always just wanted to ask that, because I think that at times social media, we go on Instagram, we see, oh, well, someone's a pro, so I want to be a pro.
Yeah.
They maybe don't see what's went into it. And if someone has never perhaps heard of you before and then realizes, oh, wow, she's done 28 shows in 4 years. I'm going to struggle to do one. They kind of get more of a realization of what it takes, and that it's not easy. And I think that at times the one thing that frustrates me about the industry is that it's like a competition to see how much of a breeze. It's either there's two camps. There's one like, oh, prep's a breeze, everything's fine, or it's like, oh, I'm the hardest worker in the room, I'm grinding every day, and I'm hustling. Right?
There's no middle ground. There's no like, it's today I'm having a good day, or like you see a lot of the either one or the other. There's no like middle ground, which I do agree with, and I don't, because I feel like there is people that are like, I mean, everyone obviously is working their absolute hardest and stuff, but I feel like some people, like I said, it's individual to each person. Some people just don't find prep a struggle in terms of like, because they have high metabolisms, their genetics are different to other people's. Some people have to grind hard to get that body fat off. Like, everyone's very, very individual, and that's why I think it's difficult for Instagram, because obviously everyone nowadays has Instagram and everyone's on Instagram, so they'll see someone online and be like, oh, she's not even struggling, I'm struggling, like I'm doing something wrong, or she's doing loads, I'm doing nothing, like I'm doing it wrong. Do you know what I mean? That's that it's difficult, but it's always making sure that you can focus on yourself.
Yeah, and I just realised that I said what irritates me about the industry, but I guess I should ask you the same question. Is there anything yourself, whether it regards to the industry, competing, that really frustrates you? Maybe it's something that's developed over the years. Is there anything at all?
I mean, I think you kind of said it in terms of the way, I mean, obviously, people don't obviously admit everything on Instagram, and this is that's probably irritates me a little bit with the industry, is that people are like untrue. if that makes sense, and not, they kind of portray things to be either easier or harder than they actually are. And the honesty sometimes behind, not the bodybuilding world, but just the fitness industry in general. It's very like, I mean, that's Instagram in general. It's very highlight reel, just showing the good sides. Nowadays, you see a lot of the bad sides as well, which I do. I think I appreciate more when people say, look, I'm having a shit day. We all get them. Let's move on. That's what I like seeing. And that's why I particularly tend to follow people in their journey, because people are just being honest. Whereas some people kind of are like, yeah, I'm doing really well. This is great, doing this. And then actually behind the scenes, they're hating it and dying. And do you know what I mean? And it's not something that I particularly would want to follow. And it does frustrate me sometimes, because you're like, well, why would you just not want to be honest? Because your followers want to know the real side of prep and stuff. And you see it a lot more nowadays in terms of people being open and honest, which I really like about the industry. But I think when I first started, it was very, very saturated in terms of like, oh, I'm doing really, really well. This is great. And then I would speak to someone and she's like, yeah, I'm doing like horrible. And I'm like, you just posted you were doing great. Like, what? Like, so that's probably one thing that annoys me about the fitness industry. And I think it's just Instagram in general. It's very much like, you have to take it with a pinch of salt. I think that's very important for a lot of people to do, especially when they're starting in the industry or in bodybuilding and stuff. Take everything with a pinch of salt. And if you need to take time off social media, then do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. But I think that I probably, back in the day, when I say back in the day, I mean 2017, was probably very hard-nosed and would not show any vulnerability. But that was just simply because I was a man and was like, yeah, it should be this way.
I think that's a man thing. Sometimes I never really see like a lot of the males say like, I'm struggling. It's like, yes, this is do or die, you know, like that kind of mentality. But I think a lot of people have that mentality nowadays, which is also great to see that, because it's very inspiring, if I'm honest. It's nice to see like, oh, he's working his absolute hardest, so I need to be doing the exact same, because he's going to beat me otherwise. That's kind of the mentality I have a lot of the time when I'm either training or in cardio. I'm like, well, if you are lazy at any point, there's someone that's going to be there working harder and they'll beat you. So that's kind of what my motivation is like on the daily.
Absolutely. Now, I know we've not got a huge amount of time left, but what I wanted to ask you, and everyone's probably going to kill me if I don't, is just any advice you'd give to some females out there that are training in the back garden. Maybe they've got a dumbbell, maybe they've got one barbell, they've got a band, and they're probably thinking, fuck, when's the gym's opening? When are schools going to go ahead? Just any words of encouragement that you would perhaps give them?
I would say just to keep going, if whether or not you're in prep or you're in your off season or you're just training in general, just keep going, because I think a lot of the times people can't adjust to new environments, and it's very important to be able to do that, especially when you're bodybuilding and stuff. When you're like, sometimes it's good to, obviously in bodybuilding you can have like your own environment and you're very segregated to that, but there's things that are going to change throughout that, so you've got to get used to adapting and stuff like that. So I think it's not a lot, but keep going, because there is light at the end of the tunnel, and you are going to be proud of yourself for having that dedication throughout quarantine, throughout COVID, and then when you come to the gyms, you'll be like, I'm really proud that I kept on going. Now I can continue this hard work in the gym, instead of kind of just giving up and being like, oh, I'll wait till the gyms open up, and stopping and then restarting everything over again. Just keep going and kind of remember why you're in the industry that's bodybuilding.
Yeah, I love that. Now, one thing that's probably off topic of bodybuilding, and you can answer this in regards to anything in life, and I tend to ask this at the end of the podcast, is what would you say is the biggest lesson you've learned in life? And from that lesson, is there any advice you'd give to someone listening that's perhaps going through the same thing?
Oh God, I'm like, I would say it comes down to like the dedication and kind of like the focus and stuff, bringing that kind of like back again. Is that obviously very, very cliche, this kind of like saying, but obviously if you want something, you go after it, and you don't stop until you've got it. I think that's very, very important to me. And I've used that phrase in so many aspects of my life because of bodybuilding. And a lot of the times, even when I didn't know I didn't have bodybuilding, but I was obviously cheerleader. I didn't use that phrase a lot of the times, because I was like, oh, it's fine. But that phrase is very important to me now, in terms of like actually having that dedication and working towards something, because once you achieve it, you have that such that amazing feeling of like, I actually worked for this and worked really, really hard and put my all into it, and I have it now. And now I can move into the next goal and have that exact same mentality. So I think the biggest lesson for me is definitely going after something that you want and not stopping until you get it is definitely my motto that I would live for, because it's taught me a lot in life and got me to places that I want to be. Do you know what I mean?
Fantastic.
So
if there's anyone listening that has absolutely loved the podcast and wants to hear a little bit more, I just wonder, could you just let them know how they get in touch with you, Instagram handle and whatnot?
Yeah, so my Instagram handle is just Phoebe Hagan _ after, and then the same with my YouTube channel. Those are the two that you can kind of get in contact with me. And my YouTube is Phoebe Hagan again. And then if you wanted to contact me through email or anything like that, you can find my email through my Instagram.
Fantastic. Now, a massive thank you for myself for coming on the podcast. I know that Clara, who is her name, the bikini coach, will be listening and buzzing about it. But not only that, a lot of the other listeners as well that know you are a huge inspiration, not only to them as competitors, but I'm sure just them as strong female figures in the industry today. So a massive thank you. And for anyone listening, please go give Phoebe a follow, support her in her journey and everything that she does, because she will certainly give it the beans.